Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. I'll allow a few more folks to trickle in before we start. Thanks. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in to this month's advocacy webinar. I'm JP Dorval, Advocacy and Public Policy Liaison for Prevention Action Alliance. And for those of you who have been regular listeners to our advocacy webinars, you'll notice that we're in a new format. This is the first time that I've been able to utilize Zoom when hosting this. So I appreciate everyone's patience. I'm still getting used to doing the webinar via Zoom, even though I use Zoom almost every day. So if for some reason you can't hear me or the view on your side is wonky, just let me know so I can try to troubleshoot that. So today's webinar is actually going to be pretty short. We're in the midst of the budget, so there is not much to report on when it comes to legislative activity. Most legislative activity right now is focused around the budget. So that'll be mostly what we discuss today, along with a couple things that PA is tracking. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are in the midst of the biennial budget. The governor released his budget proposal on February 1st. There have been no behavioral health cuts. So behavioral health as a whole in the budget looks very good. And I've said that a couple times now. I just want to reassure people that this time around, the behavioral health community has done a good job advocating for why funds should not be cut, and in fact, advocating for why funds should be added. So we don't believe that cuts will be an issue this year as it was 2 years ago, but of course, we're going to keep an eye on it. House amendments to the bill are due this week. So if there are any amendments that you all have spoken to your legislators about, if there are any amendments that you would like us to push forward, the time to put those into the budget are over the next 2 weeks. But the General Assembly is reviewing amendment requests this week. Prevention Action Alliance will be focusing on the Student Wellness and Success Funds. And I've mentioned this a lot. 2 years ago, our focus was split between student wellness and success and also K through 12. Actually, most of our efforts were around the K through 12 funding in Ohio Moss's budget. That funding was one-time funding and is not in the budget this time around. However, the intent and the purpose behind the K through 12 funding has been put into the student wellness and success funds. Now you might be asking, okay, well, you know, how is that language different this time around versus last time? So this time around, they added prevention as one of the list of uses for student wellness and success funds, which I know was a big issue with the funds last time. And also they tweaked the way that the partner language reads in the bill. So based on how the bill reads currently, and again, it's going to undergo a plethora of changes over the next couple of weeks as the House introduces their version, because the version that's currently out is actually just the governor's version. But the way that the partnership language is different this time around is that they created two classes of partners that school districts need to partner with when developing plans for student wellness and success. One class of partners contains the boards and prevention and treatment groups at the community level. So coalitions, all those groups. The second class of partners actually has the ESCs and all of the traditional partners that we saw in the last student wellness and success funds. So what does this mean for us as preventionists, as a prevention field? This means that school districts have to partner with either an Adam H board and a coalition and an ESC. So we have two opportunities to partner with districts and schools based on how the language reads right now. So you can either be in the first partnership class or the second partnership class. So that's good for us. And having prevention added to the list of uses is great. I know one complaint, or I should say feedback that we received regarding the student wellness and success dollars from last budget was that the reporting needed to be better, and that a lot of schools were using those funds to supplant instead of supplement. So they were swapping out those funds with funds that they currently utilize for whatever behavioral health supports they do, whether they're evidence-based or not, and then they use the newly freed funds to fund another funding gap within the school's general operating budget. So obviously, because of that, I don't know if I can even say it's a loophole, but because of that I guess lack of oversight or movement by the school, the intent of those dollars were not played out to their fullest extent throughout the state. So really, it was just a lot of the same. And some schools did great, but there were definitely some that we've heard we're not using those funds to the best of their ability, and we're not using those funds to increase behavioral health services for their student population. So in an attempt to fix that, to ameliorate that, Prevention Action Alliance has put together language, so a language amendment that we hope to get into the bill, into the budget bill, House Bill 110, while it's still in the House. So we have it drafted, and I would share the language with you all, but because it's still in, it hasn't been added to the budget yet. I'm not able to share it with you all, but what I will say is the goal of the language that we're trying to get into the budget is to sustain the partnerships and support built through the Student Wellness and Success Funds over the last 2 years, and also to sustain those partnerships that were built through the K through 12 funds, right? Because that's why the Student Wellness and Success Funds language change was to include the intent and purpose of those K through 12 funds. So in order to do that, we are including that when a school develops their student wellness and success plan to access those funds, they need to do it in a way that coordinates with the Department of Health's whole child framework. And for those of you who participated, I believe it was in the fall that we had a discussion about the whole child framework. It's a new educational framework that it's a national framework, but Ohio made its own whole child framework that says that schools need to partner with community groups, families, in order to provide a more holistic form of education and support for their student. So it's really ingraining the whole child framework into the school's operating purposes. And we also have language saying that a school's Ohio improvement plan, so the metrics that a school aims to hit based on the standards of the department, those also need to be in alignment with this plan. So we're saying you're creating these student wellness and success plans. It needs to be a plan that aligns both with your operating budget and the whole child framework, and obviously needs to address the things within that student wellness and success language section in the budget. So because of this continuity that we're trying to create with the language, we're hoping that the student wellness and success funding is no longer seen as a separate funding pot that's supposed to kind of dip into just to either plug a funding hole or just support the current behavioral health activities that they're doing, but so that those increases and that supplementation of the supports and the prevention work really is ingrained into a school's operating procedures, so that regardless of this funding, those activities can continue. So it's a little tricky, but that's what that language change is attempting to do. And if anyone has any questions about that, where we are with that, just let me know. We won't know whether that actually makes it into the budget, I believe, until next week or the week after. So I will keep you all updated on that. But the amendment has been drafted. We're shopping it around to a couple members currently. And we'll keep you updated. But that's really where Prevention Action Alliance is focusing. Now, there's word that there will be other things in the budget. I think there may be some vaping language in there too. I don't know. There's a lot of things milling around. We have no idea what's actually going to make it into the House version of the budget until it's actually in there. So once it's in there, pay attention to our legislative update. Tune into our next advocacy webinar or legislative webinar, and I'll speak on those, and we'll break it down for everyone. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, and I will try to answer it as we go along. So, as I mentioned, currently most of the General Assembly's efforts are focused on the biennial budget, because they're really trying to stay on task this time and get it out in a timely fashion. But there are other bills that have been introduced either before the budget was introduced or over the last couple of weeks. The prevention action is tracking. Now, when I say tracking, we're keeping an eye on it. Some bills are receiving more engagement from us than others, but these are the ones that so far have caught our eye that we're keeping a close eye on. So the first one is House Bill 5. It's a chemical dependency board bill. Essentially, what it does is it modifies the requirements that have to be met for licensure as a chemical dependency counselor. So usually this isn't something that we would necessarily weigh in on. However, recently they did add language that would change the rules regarding supervision of prevention services. So they're limiting the licenses that can supervise prevention services. So in sum, it's something that we support. We want prevention services to be supported by prevention specialists, and that is what that language in HB 5 does. And if anyone wants to take a closer look at that, you can look up House Bill 5, Ohio, 134th General Assembly, and that should pull it up. Or you can send me an email at jpdorval at preventionactionalliance.org, and I can walk through that bill with you. But that is a bill that we do support. It is currently in the Senate. It's already passed the House, so we're keeping an eye on that. House Bill 9, dextromethorphan sales. So for those of you who don't know about dextromethorphan, it's a common ingredient in cough medications. It's a cough suppressant, and kids have been known to abuse dextromethorphan and that cough suppressant medication for years now. So this bill would prohibit anyone without a prescription and under the age of 18 from purchasing that. And that's just a standard prevention tactic, and we have supported it. I know coalitions are supporting it as well in an individual capacity, but we did submit written testimony in support of that. That bill is also in the Senate right now, has already passed the House. House Bill 60, to authorize the use of medical marijuana for the autism spectrum disorder. That is a bill that is currently in the House. I believe it's only had one hearing. And to my knowledge, I think it was just sponsor and proponent. This bill is an interesting one. It was introduced last year, and I believe the only sponsor was Representative Brent at the time, but now they have Representative Sites, who is a big mover and shaker in the General Assembly. The autism community has been trying to get this for a while. I know Prevention Action Alliance, we're an interested party right now, but we do want to touch base with the medical board to see whether they've weighed in on this. Traditionally, we have a mechanism in place to approve qualified conditions for medical marijuana, so we don't support the use of the legislative process to then add a qualifying condition. I think that undercuts the process. At least we think it undercuts the process and it really pulls away from the original intent of the medical marijuana program. So that is our stance on it right now, but we are keeping an eye on that. If you have any questions or know anything about that or have heard from other community groups about this bill, feel free to let us know. House Bill 65, which is that electronic instant bingo bill. For those of you who are on PGNO's emailing list or have heard Derek Longmire, their executive director, talk about it. Essentially, it'll give small slot machines to all the fraternal organizations and veterans organizations in the state. It's something that PGNO wasn't supportive of last General Assembly, and we weren't supportive of last General Assembly, but it's back. And I know PGNO is on it, so we'll see where that goes. I believe it's also currently in the House. House Bill 90 and Senate Bill 22, health orders. So this is, and I'm sure you all have seen articles and have heard news reports about this. This is really the General Assembly's attempt to step into the Ohio Department of Health process when it comes to emergency orders. A big complaint from the General Assembly is that there isn't enough oversight, and the governor and the director have overstepped their bounds when it comes to these orders and how long they are and how restrictive they are and all of that. I know from just a procedural standpoint, Prevention Action Alliance does not support the General Assembly stepping into the work of the department in this way. From a quick glimpse or from a quick overview, this bill started off by restricting the Ohio Department of Health a lot. Now they're creating an oversight committee for health orders, which is interesting. The Ohio General Assembly has a few oversight committees currently in play. Well, they used to have an oversight committee over education, but they eliminated that last budget. And they still have a Medicaid oversight committee. So based on this language, they want to create a health order oversight committee and also want to put limits on how long orders can go for. I believe that they said an order can only go for, and by order, I mean, Department of Health or an executive order relating to health can only go for 90 days, and then they have the power to extend it. And if they don't extend it, then it fizzles out. It's a very strange bill, but they are really gung-ho about it. So they have both a House bill and a Senate bill on this. So far, the Senate bill has moved farther and faster than the House bill. The House bill is a little more extreme, but the Senate bill has those components that I mentioned. Generally, Prevention Action Alliance isn't supportive of this, but we are an interested party, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then, lastly, Senate Concurrent Resolution number 4. And I realized that I did not put the title of that, but it is the Racism as a Public Health Crisis concurrent resolution for this General Assembly. So racism as a public health crisis, that is the concurrent resolution, this General Assembly. And some of you may be wondering, why is this a concurrent resolution? Why isn't it a bill? So because it's a declaration, it comes out as a resolution. So resolutions are generally expressions of the General Assembly. So it's a statement from the General Assembly. And those statements can come in a variety of forms, but declaring racism public health crisis, because there's no legislative component to that. They're not mandating anything. There's no funding involved. It's really just a statement. That is why it's a concurrent resolution. There are two different types of resolutions. There are concurrent resolutions. There are joint resolutions. Concurrent resolutions are basic. Again, they're just statements. Joint resolutions are also statements, but they have a little more power. I know the General Assembly uses joint resolutions when they want to get a constitutional amendment on a ballot. And it was for the redistricting process that we're going into this year. When that was introduced a couple of years ago, that showed up as a joint resolution. But generally, resolutions are expressions. And if you have any questions about why that's even a thing, just let me know. I will say, do not confuse resolutions at the state level with resolutions at the federal level, because they do work a little differently, but I can go into that at another time. Again, feel free to send me any questions about any of those bills. I know that a few of you may have bills that you're tracking or bills that you want to introduce. Again, feel free to loop me in and I can kind of help with that strategy if need be. So I do want to put this message from CADCA. So we're in the appropriation stages for the congressional session. The president's budget request doesn't come out until April, but committees and legislators are already having discussions about appropriations. So CADCA has given us a link that they would like us to utilize to reach out to our congressmen and women to urge them to support DFCs in these appropriations. Now I'm putting a link to that into the bill, not into the bill, into the chat, sorry. So give me a second as I pull that up. Let's see here. So the hyperlink for that is in the chat. The way that it works is it'll already auto-populate the information for you. All you really have to do is click send. It'll only auto-populate the information if you have an account through the CADCA site. So, if you're logged into that, it should auto-populate it. If not, you may just have to fill it in yourself. But it already has the message and everything crafted for you, and will already send it to your appropriate federal Congress people. So the Senator Chair Brown, Rob Portman, and whoever your federal representative is. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. But that info is in the chat, so feel free to utilize that link to access that. The last thing I want to discuss is Advocacy Week. And I spoke about this last week for those of you who attended, but we really showed up and showed out. I was extremely impressed with everyone's meetings and everything that I heard from all of our room monitors. We did it virtually this year, which was new, but I think it was a great success. I think we actually had better engagement from the General Assembly this time around than we've had in past years because of that flexibility. For those of you who were not able to attend, we actually spread it out. We went from having an Advocacy Day where we have everyone come down to Prevention Action Alliance. We take a bus down to Capitol Square, and then we rent a room and we have people go to their meetings throughout one day. We actually spread it out over a week. So the first day of the week, on Monday, we had an informational session where we had Representative Dontavius Gerald give us some opening remarks and talk about the importance of advocacy and successes that he's seen. And then I went into how the week was going to function, and went to a couple of items that Prevention Action Alliance wanted you all to be aware of. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we had legislative appointments, so 51 across those 3 days. And then on Friday, we had a closing session. So overall, yeah, we had 51 legislative appointments, which is a ton. I believe on average, each group brought about 3 to 4 people. So we're looking at a great attendance, more than we usually have. We had some great connections with key legislators, legislators who serve on the Finance Committee, legislators who chair or also serve on the Behavioral Health Committee that was created in the House, legislators who serve on the Health Committee. So it was great, and we really got a lot of assurances, and it was extremely timely given that we are currently in the budget process. So I loved all of that, and for the meetings that I was able to participate in, that was great. So I believe that the virtual format was very successful, and we will take information from this year and the feedback survey. So if you have not filled out our wrap-up survey or our feedback survey, it should have been sent to you via email last week. That survey closes Friday. So please, if you participated in Advocacy Week, please fill out that survey and have anyone else who attended also fill out that survey, because we do take that information into account when we plan for next year's event. And we don't know whether it's going to be a virtual event next year as well, because I know some people, obviously face-to-face is always preferable, or whether it's going to be a hybrid event. We don't know. So based on that feedback that we receive, we'll make a decision about next year's format. But overall, it was a success. We heard some great stories from different coalitions. I've already received a couple emails about coalitions following up, sending letters. So it really was a great opportunity, and we are excited to start planning for the next one. So that is all I have to share with you all. I said that this was going to be short, and we only have 5 minutes left. So I guess I kept up with the time here. But please send me any questions you have through the chat. Happy to talk to you all about any of those things. Again, we post these, the signups for these webinars in our legislative update. So if you are someone who had the email and I sent you the link, please register through our legislative update and sign up for that update as well. And if you don't know how, feel free to send me an email. I can add you to that list. So I will wait to see if any questions roll in. I know I threw a lot of information at you all, but if not, within the next couple of minutes, I will close us out, and we'll see you guys next month.
JP, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey, Susan.
Okay. All right. Can you circle back around to that preventive dollars funding, which you talked about?
Yes.
Partnership, that schools will have to either partner with an Adam H board and a prevention treatment at like a coalition level,
Yes.
or an ESC and a coalition level, correct?
Yeah. So actually,
Okay.
no, yeah. No, thank you for that. I am actually going to pull up the language for you now so that we can walk through it.
Okay, because I guess my question is there any, the schools have to put this in their budget. Is there any money that would go to a coalition, like X number of dollars has to be spent here, like a percentage?
So that is a great question. So I will say that when schools partner with these groups to create these plans, the school is not then forced to use that funding with the groups on that planning committee. So there is no language that says, okay, you partnered with, X prevention coalition to create your plan. You then have to utilize X prevention coalition services to implement that plan. And I don't have a good answer as to why that isn't in there. I know because of our local, home rule rules when it comes to education, the General Assembly can only be a little restrictive. I mean, they can't be super restrictive when it comes to, saying that schools have to use it with X group or Y group. All that's in the bill is that those groups need to be involved in the planning process. And hopefully through that planning, the schools will then utilize those fundings with those same groups. So with the boards and all of that. But there's nothing mandating that the schools utilize that funding with those partners. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does in regards to that, because I don't know if we should be proactive to say, hey, work with us.
Yes.
But we just have to wait to see if that bill passes.
Well,
right?
it will. Since it's the budget, it will. So I recommend that you all be proactive, actually. I do recommend that.
So talk with our schools, our counselors, our principals,
Yes.
administrations to say, work with us.
Yes. Yeah. Just say, hey, we have the student wellness and success funding coming out again. And I know because of COVID, a lot of schools weren't able to implement the plans that they had. But say, hey, we're actually receiving more funding. And now that, prevention is listed as one of the possible uses for this funding, work with us, right? Involve us in
Got
your
it.
planning. And then, show what services you as a coalition provide, and then maybe they can find a place for you guys in that plan. So can everyone see my screen?
Okay.
Can you see my screen, Susan?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so if you look up, so I'm in the budget language itself right now. I'm not in an analysis. So on page 783, right, of House Bill 110, which is the budget bill. If you scroll down, this is where they start. This is where the changes for student wellness and success start. So you'll see in part B, it says, in any fiscal year, a city, local, exempted village, or joint vocational school district, community school, or STEM school shall spend student wellness and success funds it receives for any of the following initiatives or a combination of any of the following initiatives, right? So this is the list. Mental health services. So everything that's underlined is what they added this time around. So mental health services, including telehealth services, and this is for us. Number 2, culturally appropriate, evidence-based or evidence-informed prevention education, including youth-led programming and social emotional learning curricula to promote mental health and prevention substance use and suicide. So this is the language that the department added to kind of shift the intent behind the K through 12 funding last budget into the student wellness and success. And I believe that the student wellness and success funding is increased by about 100 billion. I think it's 100 something. It's either 100 million or 100 billion. I know that's a big difference, but I don't remember which one it is. But this is the language that was added to add prevention into the list of uses for those funds. Okay. So then when it comes to the partnership language, that's on the next page on 784. So you'll see starting in section C, each city, local, exempted village, and joint vocational school district, community school, and STEM school that is subject to the requirements of this section shall develop a plan for utilizing student wellness and success funds it receives in coordination. And you'll see they crossed out at least one. So they're changing it from at least one because there's only one section list of partners last time around, but now they're saying both of the following community partners. So now you'll see the different the 2 types of partners I was talking about. So you'll see in subsection 1, a board of alcohol, drug, or mental health services, so an ADAMH board, or in section B, and this is what I was talking about, a community-based mental health treatment or prevention provider, right? So this is one of the partners this is one of the groups of partners that the school has to partner with to use these when developing a plan to use these funds, right? And then in the other section, you have the ESCs, Board of Developmental Disabilities, community-based health and treatment prevention provider, right? So they added prevention, a board of health, a county Department of Job and Family Services, and then the list goes on, public hospital agency. So when a school is developing the plan, it can partner with a board and a prevention provider. It can partner with a prevention provider and an ESC. It can partner with a prevention provider and a county board of developmental disabilities. So it's a pairing, right? So one of the pair has to be either a board or a prevention provider. And the second partner within that pair can be anything listed in that second subsection. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it does. Thank you for the clarification. I will
Okay.
definitely look up that House Bill 110. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. House Bill 110 is the biennial budget. Um, and I see that we did have a question, or I guess a comment. If you exist in a school district that is very difficult to get buy-in, I mean, I wish I had a great answer, and maybe that's something that we should look at to see if there's anything that we can do to help incentivize, schools who are difficult to work with to working with our folks. That's something I'll take back, and we'll see if there's another language change that we can implement to help with that. But it's just another space for advocacy, right? Advocacy is not only towards the General Assembly, but it's within the district and that school space as well. So just working to build that relationship, because these funds are available and we need to make sure that there is good buy-in. So
JP,
yeah.
Jody, I don't know if it's in this language or not, but is there anything for the schools to conduct youth surveys? Because that would help with buy-in, and it would help us know what to provide schools.
So Jody, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by
Well, I tend to see the schools that are not the easiest to work with do not usually buy into having youth survey data.
Okay.
And I think requiring schools to conduct youth surveys then allows that community partner to kind of say, hey, look, I can see your ACE scores are high, or I can see
Right.
the perception of harm is low. And then
Right.
it creates an ability, if they see the problem, then it's easier to say, hey, we have a solution for it.
That's a good suggestion. And there is nothing in the language that says that currently, to my knowledge. I'll do another read through to see. But there's nothing in there about making sure that schools do those youth surveys. I will say, I don't know if this is public yet, but the Department of Education has a tool now on their site for Medicaid. So it says how many students within the district receive Medicaid services, broken down by like the type of services that they receive. So I believe there's a section that'll show how many kids within a district receive behavioral health services from Medicaid. So that and that's statewide, and that'll be for every district. So that kind of addresses that. But to your point, Jody, I do understand that having the schools conduct those surveys, and being specific with how many students have a certain ACE score or what have you will help with buy-in, because then they'll see like, oh, well, like a large portion of our student population has this ACE score or needs this behavioral health support, and we should be supporting them. So I do get that. So let me again read through this and touch base with some of our other state partners to see if that's something that they're advocating for. And I'll also reach out to the department to see if that's something that they've thought of. And I'll try to get back to you on that.
I appreciate that, because it makes it much easier to sell when you can say, look, I can see, you have a high number of youth considering suicide or a low perception of harm on alcohol, then it's easier to say, okay, here's the evidence-based program, partner with us.
Right. No, I mean, that makes complete sense to me. So I get that. So I appreciate it. I mean, that wasn't something that I thought of. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And maybe that is something that we can tie into student wellness success, saying that you need to have a youth survey in addition to the plan. Okay, I'll think of something. I'll brainstorm it and we'll see how folks feel about it. All righty. Any other questions? So I know Lois, I think, Joey, to your point, Lois asked a question about, and I do not know what that acronym stands for, Lois. So forgive me for that, but
Yeah, that's the youth behavioral risk factor surveillance system. It's a tool that's been used and encouraged by CDC. They've had an adult version for decades, BRFSS. And so it's a great tool because you can compare it year after year after year. It's very steady and robust. They also have a youth version. And there's been controversy. Some schools didn't want to use it because it asks questions about sex, right? Or questions about suicide, or, it's like they want their heads to be stuck in the sand. But a lot of school districts do use it, I believe. And again, because it comes from the CDC, it's a public health tool. So my second part of the comment was that perhaps if you talk to someone in the community health area of your local health department, maybe they would be a good kind of co-partner in advocating for the use of that survey or some other survey that they could help construct if there are questions in the YRBFSS that are offensive to people.
right.
But again, public health really cares about these issues too in kids. Many of the local health departments have community health improvement plans, and suicide and substance use are in just about all of them as among their top 5 public health priorities. So I would see if the youth version of the BRFSS is in use or has been in use, and then check with your health department to see if they would help you make the case for why that's more important now than ever.
That's a good point, Lois. Yeah, so I mean, I co-signed that. And that might be the way that we need to go. I'm not sure how the Department of Health is going to feel about putting that language into the budget. So maybe that is an alternate route that works better. I will say though, I'll do my homework and I'll do my research and the legwork on my end. But again, we're fresh off of an advocacy week, and I remember a few of you have legislators in your districts that serve on the finance committee in the Senate. And I remember, those legislators from the meetings that I participated in were very open to feedback from you all. So feel free to send that suggestion to your legislator as well. Because if they have the buy-in, because that'll help me on my end, because if they already are bought into that and want to put that in the bill, then it's a very easy ask to get that drafted and they can introduce it and put it into the bill. So by all means, go ahead and reach out. Don't wait on me. But again, I'll do the due diligence, and we'll read through to make sure that's not included anywhere, and we'll touch base with the department to see if that's something that they support. Because I will say, if that's something that the department does not support, that will make it infinitely more difficult to put into the budget. But I will work on that.
JP, I put a link in the chat to the most recent data from that youth risk survey. It's on the CDC website. So I put that link there, and there's always great data, even if it's just state data, maybe not at the local level, but I think it makes a great case for why these issues are so important among our youth and among our schools.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Lois. I appreciate it. Okay, well, this was a great conversation, but we are way over time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you have any additional questions, you all should have my email. Email me at any point with any question, and I'll get back to you. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been wonderful. I'll see you all next month. Thanks.